Okay. So as I mentioned, today's webinar is all about urban heat and how cool walls can be one tool for mitigating that. So to make a bit of an introduction, we're going to talk a little bit about extreme heat and about the urban heat island effect. So urban warming is a critical challenge that negatively impacts human health, quality of life, energy use, air quality, social equity, and economic prosperity. More than 8 out of 10 Americans currently live in an urban area. And according to the US EPA, daytime temperatures in urban areas tend to be about 1 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit higher than temperatures in outer lying areas, with nighttime temperatures about 2 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit higher. This nighttime temperature is especially concerning because nighttime is usually the time when cities have a chance to cool off and buildings and structures can release some of that heat they've been holding all day. So the fact that they're not getting as much cooling relief is really problematic. This is due to the urban heat island effect, which is a phenomenon that is caused by high concentrations of dark impervious surfaces, including roofs, walls, parking lots, and roads, combined with a lack of trees and green space. Tall buildings that block or slow air movement also contribute to the urban heat island effect. These are known as urban canyons. These, along with waste heat from released by vehicles and air conditioning units, can exacerbate the effect of urban heat. Smaller heat islands can also exist within cities. Often these are neighborhoods where people of color and low-income residents live. Again, these are areas where there are more dark surfaces and as well as impervious surfaces and a lack of vegetation. On screen, you can see a few examples of things that can contribute either to a cooler or a more hot neighborhood. Climate change is exacerbating the urban heat island effect and making cities hotter. A recent study published in the journal Nature Climate Change projects that cities will be 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit hotter by the end of this century. In heat-stressed neighborhoods, this temperature rise will result in even more heat-related deaths. The impact of excessive heat on human health cannot be underestimated. In many large urban centers in the United States, heat is the leading weather-related killer, greatly outstripping hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning, and blizzards, as stated by Christina Dahl, a senior climate scientist at the Union of Concerned Scientists, in a July 2021 article published in the Scientific American. There are also other negative impacts from heat, including heat illness, increased respiratory and cardiovascular issues, increased hospitalizations and impacts on health services, and disruptions to key infrastructure such as power grids and water supplies. Heat also impacts energy use and air quality. When it's hot out, air conditioning use increases, which puts a strain on electrical grids. This often results in blackouts and grid failures. The increase in air conditioning use also produces more waste heat, which adds to the heat problem. Higher outdoor temperatures also decrease air quality by increasing ground level ozone and slowing airflow. The increase in cooling demand from AC use can also result in the use of dirty peaker plants, which emit air pollution in neighborhoods. So, how can we work together to combat heat in our communities? In this next section, Dr. Ronan Levinson will describe solar reflective walls as one tool for mitigating heat and prescriptions and incentives for their deployment.
Thank you, Audrey. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, depending on from where you're joining. I'll begin by talking about cool walls for combating heat. Next slide, please. If we consider how serious heat can be, we understand why some organizations are turning to solar reflective walls or cool walls as one solution among several interventions that can be used. Solar reflective walls are a low-hanging fruit. They are often a cost-effective approach with immediate benefits as opposed to trees, which I like a lot, but they do take a while to grow and produce shade and cooling by evapotranspiration. Cool walls have also been found to be as effective as cool roofs in some parts of the United States. Cool walls can reduce indoor temperatures in spaces that are not air conditioned by reducing the building's solar heat gain. So if you have an air conditioned space, you will save money. If you have an unconditioned space, you will reduce the temperature. And if you have a building where the air conditioner can't really keep up, you will help the air conditioner regulate your living space at some temperature that's okay for you. All this can help you save money in an individual building. On a larger scale, such as that at the city, they can reduce the aggregate energy demand and the strain on the grid, especially during peak times. And this will reduce the likelihood of grid failure, brownouts, and blackouts, which frankly is a very important thing. It will also, by saving energy, reduce the generation of greenhouse gases. Solar reflective walls will also reduce the outside air temperature simply by having cooler wall surfaces. The cooler the walls, the less heat flow there is from the walls to the air, and thus, in the end, the cooler the air. And this will not only mitigate the urban heat island effect that Audrey was mentioning earlier, but it will reduce the concentration of ground level ozone or smog, improving the outdoor air quality, because the rate at which ozone cooks from precursors depends on temperature. The lower the air temperature, the slower the formation of smog from things like VOCs and NOx. And as I mentioned before, if you don't have air conditioning, then the cool walls can help your inside be more comfortable during hot times of the day. And this is very important for our existing building stock, over half of which was constructed before 1980 and has not a whole lot of insulation in the envelope. Walls are especially poorly insulated compared to roofs because it's harder to insulate a vertical cavity like a wall, which is thin and, well, vertical, than to put insulation in a building's plenum or attic. Next slide, please. So just to go back to the physics a little bit, a solar reflective wall is one that does a good job reflecting sunlight. And here we have some photos taken very recently by CRRC of some west-facing walls in Portland, measured a couple days ago at 7 in the evening, when the outside air temperature was about 85 Fahrenheit. And you can see here photos of some light colored walls, some dark colored wall, and things that are in between. And you can immediately see, just by looking at the temperature recorded with this infrared thermometer, that the temperature of this blackish wall in the center was about 161 Fahrenheit, while the temperature of the whitish wall at the left was only about 114. So that's not a subtle difference, and you can easily tell just by touching a wall if it has light and dark colored portions. And you see some results that are in the middle, about 120 to 140, depending on the color of the wall, which is a proxy, but not a perfect one, for how reflective it is. Generally, lighter colored walls are more reflective, darker ones are less reflective, but there's a whole range of technologies that allow you more choice of color in cool walls, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So thanks, Audrey. Continuing, the simple understanding of what's happening is that sunlight is striking the wall, and some fraction of that incident sunlight will be reflected, which we call, not surprisingly, the solar reflectance. Now, of the radiant energy that is absorbed by the wall, some of it will be transferred into the building, but some of it will also be released to the environment by what we call emission of radiation, which depends on the surface's temperature. And the efficiency, or the relative ability, of a surface to cool itself by emitting radiation is called thermal emittance. So these are both properties that are measured on a scale of 0 to 1, or if you prefer 0 to 100%, where a value of 1 or 100% would indicate that a surface is maximally reflective or maximally emissive. Let's continue. Thank you. And I was mentioning before that color is a proxy, but not a perfect one for the coolness of a surface. And here I have a little diagram showing a bunch of commercially available wall products, mostly paints, but some are claddings. And as we go from left to right, we're going from lower solar reflectance to higher solar reflectance. And the bold number on top of each picture is the solar reflectance. The group on the top are surfaces that have been colored with what I'll call conventional pigments. Those are ones where their ability to reflect the longer wavelength near infrared part of the sunlight is similar to their ability to reflect the visible or color part of the sunlight. Then the grouping down at the bottom are what we call spectrally selective or cool colors, where they've been chosen for a higher than usual ability to reflect that invisible part of the sunlight. And to give you a sense of what that can do for you, if I were to look at the column with solar reflectances or SR values between 0.6 and 0.7, you can see that you have some richer colors in the lower grouping, the salmon pink and that light green, at this pretty high solar reflectance compared to the off-white and dull white that were colored with more conventional pigments. Now, there is no official definition of a cool wall, although there are some ideas that are in some standards. But I'll give you my conception of what we might think of for describing cool walls. So I would say that a lower tier cool wall would be one that would reflect at least 40, but less than 60% of the incident sunlight. And I would say that a higher tier cool wall reflects at least 60% of the sunlight. Again, that's not a formal definition. This is just me speaking. And you can get in a sense of the sort of color ranges that you get. But this is a limited selection of products. And frankly, there is a substantially wider color range available in each grouping. So let's go on. Thanks. Now, to understand how well a cool wall is going to perform over the service life of the paint or cladding, and you might think of the service life of an exterior wall paint before you decide to repaint as being something like a decade. Of course, it could be longer. I'm not saying that the paint will come off after just 10 years. What you'd like to do is have the specimens exposed outside and subject to weathering and soiling, and see how their radiative properties evolve. Now, the Cool Roof Rating Council does exactly this for roofing specimens and has done so for many years. And emulating the program that the CRRC has used to expose roofing products, the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab Cool Wall Study, conducted with support of the California Energy Commission, exposed a wide variety of roofing products, 55 in total, at the 3 sites that have been historically used by the CRRC for roof product exposure, one in Arizona, one in Ohio, and one in Florida. And you can see a picture of a typical exposure rack. The takeaway from this is very reassuring. The ability of the wall products to maintain their solar reflectance after 3 years was really, well, terrific. The graph at the right shows the albedo or solar reflectance measured after 3 years compared to the initial value of the albedo. And if a point falls on that diagonal line that's dashed, then there was no change. And the gray band shows a change in solar reflectance window of plus or minus 5 percentage points. And you can see that virtually all products that have an initial solar reflectance of 70% or less had almost no change in solar reflectance, no loss over time. And only those that were something like 80% reflective or more, and these were some very bright white paints, and frankly, brighter white than you would typically think of using for a wall, suffered a reflectance loss. And even those reflectance losses were not more than 5 percentage points. And I believe that on the average over the set, the solar reflectance loss, considering an average of the three sites, was not more than 2 percentage points. So it's very reassuring that a cool wall that you install now is very likely to retain its high performance over time. Next slide, please. So I'm going to move on from a discussion of the heat transfer and heat mitigation properties of the cool walls to how they are addressed in codes, programs, and standards, because policy is just as important as science when it comes to the advancement of any kind of energy saving or green technology. A growing number of codes, programs, and standards require or promote the use of solar reflective walls. And here we just have a little snapshot of some of the various codes and programs. And let me tell you a bit about some of these. The first thing to understand is that the definition of a solar reflective wall does vary according to the jurisdiction, but that's true of roofs as well. Different building energy standards, different incentive programs have different requirements for a cool roof, so it's not surprising there's some variation for cool walls. Among those that are described on this screen, ASHRAE Standard 90.1 for energy efficient design of buildings except low-rise residential, that's something that can be adopted by states or localities. It has a cool wall requirement in climate zone 0, which is very hot places. And it does offer now, or will when it when the latest version of 90.1 is adopted, a credit for cool walls in climate zones 1 and onward. So there's a little carrot being offered. In California, our Green Building Standards Code, that's Title 24, Part 11, called Cal Green, that's a stretch code, and that includes a voluntary requirement, which is something of an oxymoron, for cool walls that can become mandatory if a local jurisdiction decides that it should be adopted. The Hawaii State Energy Conservation Code offers a trade-off for insulation. So if you use cool walls, you can reduce the insulation that goes into a new tropical home, which is a very attractive choice because you can save a lot of money that way. And it's pretty warm in Hawaii. Green Globes for new construction 2021 certification program. That cites the CRRC's wall rating program and has a requirement for cool walls. And then there are several others, including the Green Seal Standard for paints, coatings, stains, and sealers, the International Green Construction Code, National Green Building Standard, and last but not least, the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED rating system currently has a pilot credit for the installation of solar reflective walls, and I'm going to touch on that in some upcoming slides. I'll also add that in addition to these codes, programs, and standards, reflective walls have recently been added to something called the California Emissions Estimator Model, or CAL-EE mod, which is a tool that's used to quantify emissions from development projects, and that's widely used by cities in California. So cool wall emission reduction benefits can be calculated that way. Next slide, please. Thank you. And as promised, here's a bit more about the LEED Heat Island Mitigation Credit for cool walls. This is a pilot credit that I wrote based on research performed by my team that conducted a cool walls study for the California Energy Commission. It was published by the U.S. Green Building Council a little over a year ago, and it's been extended through April 2023. And you can obtain this point in LEED if you surface at least 3/4 of your building's gross exterior wall area with a cool wall material. And the LEED definition of a cool wall material for purposes of this pilot credit is one that has an initial solar reflectance of at least 60 percentage points and an initial thermal emittance of at least 75 percentage points. And the reason why the requirement, at least currently, says that you have to surface at least 75% of the gross exterior wall area is that this is not a credit designed for, say, a glass wall building that is almost entirely windows on its facade. This is intended for buildings that have somewhat less window area and that can provide a heat island mitigation benefit by using a cool surface, because that cool surface on the wall would cover a substantial area. And yeah, let's go on to a little bit more about the nature of the use of this credit. Now, LEED projects do need credible data, and we know at least 5 projects that are currently pursuing this credit. But in the absence of an online wall product directory that would tell them the radiated products of various materials, users of the LEED pilot credit have expressed some difficulty in finding compliant products that have been tested using the required methods. And third-party ratings from the CRRC are key to make this happen. And obtaining CRRC product ratings through a program that Audrey is going to describe is a really great way to promote your cool wall products to LEED projects that are using this credit. And if projects continue registering for the credit, it'll have the potential to become a permanent credit and continue driving users to products on the CRRC's directory. So it's, I think at this point, very important to have a growing participation in the CRRC's rated products directory and increase the number of cool wall products that can be found this way. It should be very complementary to the credit. The more easily one can find products on the rated products directory, the more likely one is to be able to qualify for the credit. And the more the credit is used, the greater the demand for cool wall products. So next slide, please. Third-party ratings are really important. As discussed, cool walls themselves are an important tool for mitigating the growing impacts of heat in our communities. And credible, easy to access data is important for helping end users understand product performance and to identify products that comply with the codes, programs, and standards that I mentioned before. And that's where third-party ratings come in. These inform consumers about the rated product's abilities to reduce heat gain. They help consumers identify higher performing products or products that are compliant with a particular code or program. And they provide assurance of unbiased and verified data. And I'll now turn it over to Audrey to provide an overview of the CRRC's wall product rating program, which was created to meet this need.
Thanks, Ronan. I'm just gonna do a little housekeeping here and pin my video. Okay, so as Ronan said, I'm going to walk you all through the CRRC wall product rating program. But in order to do that, I'm also going to provide a little bit of background about the CRRC itself so you can kind of understand where this information is coming from. So before diving into the wall program, I'd like to provide some background on the Cool Roof Rating Council as an organization. The CRRC is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We evaluate and label the radiative performance of roofing and exterior wall products. We provide a public service through product ratings, as well as technical research and education activities. This supports the development of policies and programs centered around energy efficiency and mitigating the impacts of the urban heat island effect. We do this by publishing the radiative performance of rated products in an online directory that is, and that data is used by policymakers and program developers to evaluate policy options, incentives, and programs. And as Ronan mentioned, it's also used to help consumers identify products that comply with these policies. Those CRRC ratings are used in the development of policies and programs. It's important to note that the CRRC does not advocate for specific requirements. The CRRC is also an ANSI accredited standards developer, and we maintain an American national standard that is referenced in many codes and standards for roofing products. We are also an ISO 17065 accredited certification body, and we are the designated Title 24 supervisory entity for roofing products in the state of California. The CRRC was established in 1998 through a collaboration of stakeholders, including government agencies, energy utilities, environmental organizations, and members of the roofing product industry. The primary purpose of the organization was to create a third-party rating system for the radiative performance of roofing products that would support compliance with California's energy code. We have since gone on to be a valuable resource that supports a wide range of codes and programs that promote the use of cool roofs, both here in the US and abroad. The CRRC is the primary source of radiative property data in the US, and national, state, and local jurisdictions acknowledge us as the only independent, trusted source of cool roof education and data. In 2019, we expanded our mission to include ratings, research, and education related to exterior wall products. One of the unique aspects of the CRRC is that we are a member-based organization, and we have participation from over 120 manufacturers, distributors, and raw material suppliers, as well as over 60 members that are roofing contractors, testing laboratories, weathering farms, government agencies, energy utilities, and other general interest stakeholders. As you can see on screen, our membership is divided into two categories. Class A includes representatives of the roof and wall product industries, while Class B includes general interest members. As I mentioned previously, the CRRC added wall ratings to our mission and bylaws in 2019. For several years, a highly collaborative group of stakeholders from the wall industry, as well as governments, national laboratories, and many other sectors worked together to develop our wall product rating program. The program was officially launched on January 17th of this year. Our diverse and balanced wall rating program committee continues to oversee and improve upon the program. And on screen, you can see a few examples of organizations that have been very closely involved with the development of our program. And these organizations are our wall program founding members who provided generous contributions to startup funds for creating this brand new program. The wall program is administered in accordance with the CRRC2 Wall Product Rating Program Manual. This manual contains all of the participation requirements, including technical criteria and test methods for measuring the solar reflectance and thermal emittance of wall materials. The manual is updated as needed upon recommendation by our Wall Rating Program Committee and approval by the CRRC Board of Directors. The manual is available online at coolroofs.org. CRRC wall ratings are obtained in accordance with consensus standards and test methods that are vetted by the CRRC. The product ratings are based on radiative performance measurements made by accredited independent testing laboratories, which we refer to as AITLs, and these are laboratories that are ISO accredited and that are approved by the CRRC to perform testing for our programs. In some cases, manufacturer testing laboratories can also submit product rating data for our color family programs. These laboratories undergo a thorough application process to demonstrate that they comply with our program requirements. When a program participant is pursuing a rating, an AITL will take initial measurements on new product samples. These are then sent to an accredited test farm in 3 different designated US climates where the specimens weather for 3 years, after which they are sent back to an AITL and tested for aged ratings. This is based on the weathering research that LB&L did that Ronan spoke about earlier. Any exterior wall product can obtain a CRRC rating, and there is no minimum solar reflectance required to obtain a rating. On screen is an image of 3 different climate zones where rated products are weathered: Ohio, Arizona, and Florida. Also on screen are a few examples of some of the common testing instruments that are used in our program. On the left is the Devices and Services Solar Spectrum Reflectometer, or SSR, which is used to test the solar reflectance of a material in accordance with ASTM standard test method C1549. The air mass 1.5 GV output is required for our program because that is the specific output for vertical surfaces and how they interact with the sun. Below is the Surface Optics Corporation 4-ton solar reflectometer, which is another option for measuring solar reflectance. On the far right is the Devices and Services AE1 emisometer, which is used to measure thermal emittance in accordance with ASTM C1371, which is used only for metal products, or the slide method, which is used for all other material types. More information about product testing can be found in our wall program manual or on our testing FAQs webpage, which the URL for that is included on the slide. So earlier, I briefly mentioned the color family program. This is a rating option that allows manufacturers to group products that are from the same product line and are very similar in color under a single rating. Color family ratings are available for architectural coating and factory coated metal products, and they're really designed to help streamline the rating process for those types of materials that have a very, very wide array of colors that they offer. We also offer compound ratings, which are allow products with the same surface formulation that are offered in a variety of different shapes and profiles to be listed under the same rating. Any product type can be eligible for a compound rating, and this is also an opportunity to streamline the rating process when you have different products that are very, very similar but different shapes. For products that are privately labeled, we also offer reference ratings. With permission from the original manufacturer, reference ratings allow privately labeled products to inherit the rated values of their parent product. Reference relationships are completely confidential and they do not appear any differently on our rated products directory. So speaking of the wall rated products directory, you can see a mock-up of the directory on screen. Our wall directory is coming soon. It is not currently live online. The example here is from our staging database, which is fully operational and ready to be launched. We are just waiting until we have our first approved rated product data to publish. So as soon as we receive those first product ratings, which are in progress right now, this directory will be live on coolroofs.org/directory/wall. Once live, the directory will contain initial and 3-year aged ratings and be available free of charge to the general public. While the wall rating program is brand new, our roof product directory currently has over 3,000 rated products, and it is the only roofing product radiative performance database in the US since the sunset of the US EPA's Energy Star program for roofing products, which occurred in June of this year. The wall directory will also be the only one of its kind. Users of the wall directory will be able to search for product names and keywords and filter by product type, color, manufacturer, and product market. Users can also filter for different solar reflectance and thermal emittance ranges to help narrow results for compliance with specific code standards or programs. You can also sort the results by any of these fields. Something we always like to point out is the share button. The share button generates a unique URL for a particular search in the directory. You can filter for different parameters or search the name of a specific product. And once you click on the button, it creates a pop-up to an email containing a unique link to that particular search term. So you can send that to yourself, you can share it with others, you can copy and paste it and put it on your website. You can do whatever you want with it in order to direct users to a particular search. Some practical applications could be if you are looking for a particular color or type of product that meets a certain solar reflectance, you can set up that search and you can revisit it whenever you need to. You can also filter it for your company's name and put that link on your website so people can easily see all of your particular rated wall products. And importantly, this is a dynamic link. So anytime that another product that meets the search criteria is added to the directory, it will automatically show up the next time you utilize that link. In addition to the wall directory, rated products are also identifiable by the CRRC product labels and rated product logos. These may be used on product packaging and literature to demonstrate your CRRC rating, although they are not required. Labels contain the rated solar reflectance, thermal emittance, and CRRC rated product ID, while the logo simply denotes that a product is rated and that users can look it up on the directory for more information. Though the wall program logo is a bit different than our roof product logo, the CRRC name and mark are widely recognized throughout the US and especially in California, where roofing products are required to use our label in order to comply with Title 24. So basically, even though it's a new program and it's a new logo, the CRRC name will lend credibility to your wall products. We also provide information and educational resources on the CRRC website. These include information tailored towards home and building owners, contractors, policymakers, and program managers. A list of codes, programs, and rebates are also available on the CRRC website. While these lists are not fully comprehensive, we do strive to keep them as up to date as possible with the latest information. And then in the screenshots on the slide, you can see a few of our recent educational documents that we've put out. One is just all about the wall program. It's a really handy, quick resource to learn more. And then the other is about the urban heat island effect. So some of that stuff we talked about in the beginning, all of that and more is available in that document. So how can you get started with rating products? It's a pretty simple process. The very first step is to become a licensee in the CRRC wall program. To become a licensee, you need to submit a short application and agreement and pay our licensee fee. If there are any questions about fees later, I do have the fee structure in the appendix slide, so we can always take a look at that. After becoming a licensee, companies can work with an AITL that is approved to perform testing for the CRRC wall program. Currently, only 2 of our AITLs perform testing for the wall program, but we have 2 additional laboratories that are in the process of becoming approved to perform wall testing. So you can access the information for the 2 current labs and also be sure to check back in the near future because there should be additional laboratories as well. To apply for a product rating, licensees complete a product rating application using a form that is provided by the CRRC, and they submit that form to the test lab along with their test specimens. The lab then enters the test data and submits it to the CRRC. At that point, we will invoice the licensee for the product rating fee. These are also included in the appendix slides today. And the CRRC will review and approve the results, and they will be published on our directory. If you're not quite ready to become a licensee, but you're interested in getting more involved with the program, there are a number of ways that you can do that. First of all, anyone is invited to join our wall committee mailing list. This mailing list receives periodic updates about the program, as well as invitations to wall committee meetings, which are open to the public. Anyone that wants to learn more about the technical aspects or be involved in conversations surrounding the program can reach out to me if they're interested in being added to this list or being invited as a guest to one of our future committee meetings. You can also follow us on social media, where we post regular updates about the WALL program, as well as other CRRC activities. This is probably the best way to stay up to date with everything that's going on. And you can see our LinkedIn and our Twitter handles there on the slide. You can also be added to the general CRRC listserv. This receives very periodic updates about the organization and our quarterly newsletters and updates. You can reach out to me if you would like to be added to that email list. You can also access the registration form by putting in that URL you can see on the bottom right of the screen. Last but not least, you can always feel free to reach out to me directly if you'd like to have a more in-depth conversation about the WALL program, or if you are interested in learning more about any of the aspects of the CRRC. My email address is listed on screen, and it is also available on coolroofs.org, where you can find all of the staff's contact information. So that concludes our presentation portion of the webinar. We have about 15 minutes left, so we would like to open it up if anyone has any questions. And as I mentioned, you can also reach out to either one of us after the call, but we'd love to address your questions now since we have time. And you can put your questions in the chat, or you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask verbally. All right, so it looks like we have a question. Where can we get costing information for the program? Great question. Let me pull up the appendix slides and kind of talk you through that. So first of all, I want to say that we have certain CRRC fees, but whatever the cost of testing and weathering is going to be quoted directly by the test lab or weathering firm that you choose to work with. So I would recommend reaching out to one of our WALL program AITLs to talk about how to get started with testing and the costs associated with that. As far as CRRC fees, you can see our licensee fee structure on screen. Our licensees fees are on a sliding scale, so it depends how much WALL product revenue your company makes within a year. So if you're on that lower end, you're looking at $1,750 annually for your licensee fee, and that is prorated for the month that you apply. So if you apply in September, you're going to be paying a prorated fee, and then starting the following January, you'll pay your annual fee. This is also available on our website. The URL is linked up here, so when I send out a PDF of the slides after this call, you'll be able to access that full fee structure. As far as product rating fees, we also do charge a fee when we publish your rating, and that goes towards maintenance of our directory and staff costs. As you can see, we have an initial rating fee that is dependent on what type of application it is, and then we charge an annual fee for the maintenance of the ratings. Like I said, you'll be able to access that on our website and see all the details. We have another question. Where does the reflective energy go when it is reflected or emitted from the WALL? So the short answer is that it goes back into the atmosphere, but I would love to turn it over to Ronen to speak more technically about that.
Sure. Most walls are diffuse reflectors and diffuse emitters. So about half goes up and half goes down. So the part that goes up largely escapes the city system, and the part that goes down will tend to strike the ground or neighboring buildings. By the way, I also see that, oh, there you go, David sent it directly to everybody. There's also a request for today's slides.
Yeah, I will send a PDF to everyone after today's call.
I have another question. Thank you for that information on costing. That was very helpful. I'm wondering, would you guys help us when we're contacting one of these labs to make sure we're asking the right questions about the required testing? Is that a service you guys would provide, or do you have some sort of document that, is boilerplate that we can submit to these testing labs to make sure we get the right information for this listing
Yeah,
program?
that's a great question. So the test labs that we work with do a lot of testing for the CRRC. So they are very aware of our program requirements. However, it is also important for the licensees to be aware as well, so that all that burden of knowing what test methods you need isn't just falling on the labs. So all of that information is included in our program manual that I mentioned earlier, but that is a fairly long document. So we have some information about the required test methods on our website. And while I don't have it in front of me, I will circulate some additional information when I send out the slides. I'll include some links to places on our website that specify what test methods are required for the different products. And I can also follow up with you directly regarding becoming a licensee and some of the details about the test methods so that you feel prepared to reach out to one of our labs.
Great, that would be helpful, because I'll have to relay some of this information to our internal staff as well to make a decision. So that would be helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, well, it doesn't look like we're getting any other questions in the chat or from anyone verbally. So I think if anyone else has anything, please feel free to reach out to me via email. And I just want to say thank you all so much for joining us. It was a pleasure sharing this information with you, and we look forward to hopefully having some more conversations in the future. So thanks everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
And thanks everybody for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ronan. All right, take care, everyone.